The Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement, and COP26. What do they all have in common? All three major climate change conferences have not yet given an effective solution to the environmental degradation that we are in right now. There's yet to be a collective legal responsibility that imposes the same burden for individuals and corporations, which makes them accountable for their decisions to produce and consume endlessly. On proposition, we say we need to have a bold solution and legal action. Two crucial things to crystallize this debate on side proposition. Firstly, let's frame the context of society in which we operate in and our progress to environmental protection. Why now are all alternatives ineffective and we must resort to a new policy? Firstly, regulations from the government do not work, especially for huge corporations who hold an immense amount of political power and therefore are able to lobby the government to make sure that climate change policies do not get passed. Exactly like how the world's major oil companies like BP, Shell, and ExxonMobil donated to countless political campaigns to ensure that carbon tax will not be passed and continue to directly push against climate change policies to tackle global warming. Secondly, panels note that opposition can't simply say that when other regulations won't work, that means our new policy won't either. Because on our side, we do a different thing. We do a collective action that requires both parties, individuals, and corporations to be accountable by recycling within their capacity. At the very least, we show that we should do this principally. Secondly, on our model. Firstly, what is the type of recycling that we want? Obviously, for individuals and corporations, the type of recycling would be very different due to the scale of their capacity and their nature. The punishment would be fine and also incarceration depending on the scale of the problem. Let's clarify. For organizations, we will focus on the waste that they produce. We would measure that waste and ensure that they are recycling. It is also going to be adjusted based on the nature of their businesses. For individuals, they have to recycle their individual consumptions. So if they buy something plastic, they have to recycle that. At this point, it's very important to recycle, and every single person has to work together in this very crucial period. It's not just a singular responsibility of an individual or a corporation. Secondly, there will be a certain independent body in every district who will make sure that this recycling is done. And thirdly, we would actively promote and socialize the need for recycling and how to do it and how we would criminalize those who do not recycle. So these individuals and organizations do not have an excuse of not knowing that they have to do this. Having done with the setup, let's move on to my arguments. I'm going to forward two arguments in my speech. Firstly, why not recycling constitutes a crime, thus it is justified to criminalize both entities. And secondly, why do you get long-term change on our side? On to my first point then, why not recycling constitutes as a crime? Firstly, let's characterize the urgency of the problem. Without collaborative action, the environment would continue to deteriorate at its current rate, which would be a major problem. We literally live in a crucial time where climate change is a significant problem and we have to do something about it before it's too late. And the only way to actually have a chance at fixing this is to work together and to cooperate and to not contribute even more. The impacts of climate change is global and no one is exempt from it. That means no one is exempt from trying to stop it. So what are the metrics for criminalizing something then? Firstly, when the particular action has direct and massive harm to collective members of societies or even causes direct harm to living beings or important elements of our ecosystem. Secondly, when the subject of criminalization has the capacity to be responsible for their action. And thirdly, when there's a capacity to act but the said party chooses ignorance. This looks like criminalization based on negligence. Note that in the status quo, we already have laws against environmental crimes such as Clean Water Act and anti-illegal logging, etc. This policy is just an extension of these laws. So let's fulfill our burden. How does this fulfill all the metrics? Firstly, these individuals or organizations have a certain duty to the world to ensure that climate change will not destroy it. Exactly because they live in this world and have been polluting it and contributing to the destruction of our climate, whether it is in a small way or a massive contribution. That means that they have a certain responsibility to fix the problems that they help to cause if they want to continue living in this world. If we don't do anything about the current environment, it will be far too late. Actively choosing to not recycle means that they are contributing to the worsening environment. We think that their choice to not do this is highly harmful to everybody on this earth, that worsening the climate change problem will contribute to making this world unlivable. They are actively harming the world's population. We would concede that to a certain extent, maybe one individual won't make that much difference, but if everybody adopted this mindset like they do in the status quo, we would literally be stuck in this cycle. That is literally the mindset that allowed climate change to persist for so long, where people keep passing their responsibility to somebody else. We want to stop this on our side. Now, secondly, they are actively choosing to not recycle when there is already awareness and consequences that they know would happen if they don't do this. So this surely fulfills the negligent elements of criminalization. Let's be clear, they have the choice of either recycling or not recycling. We think recycling is fairly easy and doable for everybody, where you learn to do it from kindergarten. So this means they have the choice to just recycle and avoid punishment. But if they continue to choose not to do so, we think it is justified that they have to face the consequences of their own actions. Let's weigh this. Nothing would be done about climate change if we do not criminalize this. The climate will keep worsening until it is far too late. But on to my second point then, about why you get long-term solution on our side. Our premise is very clear. This is the most effective way to changing the behavior of individuals and organizations, which is the key in all environmental protection attempts. Firstly, why right now is it necessary to recycle? We can't wait for geoengineering, etc. to save us from climate change, where it's literally already a huge problem now, and we cannot afford to wait another 100 years. We cannot pass this to the next generation, because by then it will be far too late. Recycling plays a huge role in actually stopping or at least slowing down climate change. It's time to care about our trash because they play a huge role in contributing to the destruction of our environment. We live in a consumer-driven world with a growing desire for new things. We cannot continue to emit more and keep consuming, but we have to make sure that what we emitted has to be recycled. So why is criminalizing this the only effective way to stopping climate change? We think that when we criminalize this, they have an active incentive to recycle and to play their part in stopping this climate change. No other incentives will work. Why? In the status quo, simply promoting the need and and the importance of recycling does not work because most people have adopted the mindset that somebody else can do it, or that I'm just one person, it won't play such a huge role. And most people are inherently selfish and would just do things that benefit them, usually in a materialistic way, where they can see and receive those benefits immediately. But secondly, incentives like rewarding money for recycling does not work either. We think usually this only works for those who actually need these rewards and not necessarily the upper classes, for example. And we would say that usually the biggest emitters are the upper classes and big corporations who have no need for these rewards and would not be sufficiently incentivized by this. So why would this criminalization actually lead to a change in behavior? Firstly, they have a fear of a criminal record. People are usually afraid of having anything that would tarnish their reputation. And secondly, there is a direct punishment, for example, fines when you're criminalized. We think they would want to avoid these things. So with all of these things, we think it's highly likely that they would actually start recycling. And once they get into the habit of it, we think that this contributes a lot into changing their behaviors of consuming when they start to realize the dire situation that they are in. This is a long-term solution that is actually effective in stopping the huge ignorance in our current world, where people would continually recycle instead of just doing it once. This will play a huge role in stopping the destruction of our environment. We need a bold solution to stop this crucial problem. For that reason, Judge, we beg you to propose.